Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this. This is Tech Sergeant Porter from the 189th Airlift Wing podcast, episode 7, yes? 7. To my right here is soon-to-be Senior Master Sergeant Rolls. Hoping.
Heyo.
Anyways, and we also have Chief Kraska and Senior Master Sergeant Ashworth. How we doing today, gentlemen?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Yeah, it's a great morning.
It's rainy outside. Why are you lying to the people?
I think rain is great.
Yeah.
I love rain, but, I'm just like,
It means I don't have to
lie.
water
Don't
my
start
plants
off with a lie.
when I get home.
All right, so today's topic, we're going to be talking about leadership, more specifically teamwork. What do you got for me there, Chief Kraska?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Chief Kraska. I'm the HRA for the 189th Airlift Wing. Part of my duties out here are diversity and inclusion and force development. And Senior Master Sergeant John Ashworth is here with me today, and he works with me as well. And so, we're just want to take a little bit of time and go over a very important topic that we feel is important. We've in the past been doing some leadership development courses, professional development courses, and one of the topics that has come up quite a bit is teamwork. And so John Ashworth is, I think, a subject matter expert in that field, and so I want to take a little bit of time and let John introduce himself, and we'll get into it.
You know how to make the dream work? Go for it. Take it away there.
We'll try. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my name's John Ashworth, Senior Master Sergeant Ashworth. I'm attached with Chief Kraska in the HR office. Like he said, we've been providing professional development for the enlisted Corps for a while now. It's been a couple of years, over 2 years now. And it's focused on leadership and trying to provide leadership development, which is something that I think has been lacking in training. And so we were glad to kind of jump into that, and we had a great time. We got a lot of great feedback, and we look forward to continuing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess with that, we'll just go ahead and get into it. I guess my first question, I want to kind of throw John a little softball here, is what is teamwork and why is it important?
Well, hopefully it's a softball. Well, I've been interested in this for a long time. In my civilian job, I'm an administrator, and so my training has been in leadership over the years. The best training that I've received is actually what we would call OJT, and that's on the job training. Mm-hmm. Leadership. When you go into leadership, we all know people that are naturally inclined and are natural leaders, but you don't become a great leader until you get really experience, and so that's where teamwork comes into me. If an organization implements a leadership or a teamwork framework within the organization, that's just part of the culture. That develops leaders within those teams. And that's why I think it's one reason why I think it's so important is to give individuals an opportunity to develop their leadership over time. Because if you think about it, the earlier you start developing leadership skills, the better you're going to be over time. That's just known. And if you read any leadership books, it always goes back to that. You need experience, and the more experience you can get, the better leader you're going to become. And then I look at it from just observing the world around me. I mean, I think we are naturally inclined to want to be part of a team, a brotherhood or a sisterhood. That's who we are as humans. And when we don't find a place that we can call a team, then we're going to find our own team. And I think we even see that like with gangs.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to find a way to find a home. And that's a negative team that you would want to be part of. So I think as leaders, we need to find a positive avenue for people to be part of a whole.
Yeah, and I think
part of a team.
And John and I both are DSGs, right? And so we're part of a team. You know, we come out here.
Yeah.
You know, our 1 week in a month, a couple weeks a year. That's a perfect example. Is actually I was active duty before I came down here, the 189th, and one of the recruiters, that's what he told me. He's like, you know, you'll see some people that just want to be here because they want to be a part of a team.
Absolutely.
And so that's the underlying, right, the whole thing. Everyone wants that. I think with teamwork, too, what is really important, how it ties so closely into leadership, is when you talk about crisis situations, right? When something adverse happens in the workplace, you know, even, you know, take it a step further to your family, right? That's a team as well.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
And so
rely on people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when something happens, you know, at work, okay, something drops and now you've got a deadline tomorrow, right? Everyone's got to pull together and you've got a million other things going on. But then that's where that leadership comes through to pull the team together to get people on task, doing what they need to do to accomplish the mission or meet the deadline. And I know in the civilian world, me personally, some of the training that I've done and the books and things that I've read, there's not as big an emphasis in every, I guess how we put it, every career path out there. So me, civilian side, being an attorney, teamwork is not always the first thing you think of, right? It's very individualized, and sometimes people don't like to share information, and they don't like to help each other out, right? Because it might be adverse to their clients' interests. And so when I was going through law school, one of the books we had to read was on teamwork, and it was like elementary. And I was like, wait a second. How do these people not know, like, what teamwork is? And so, you know, being...
You'd be surprised, right?
Right. And coming from, you know, 10 years active duty, you know, teamwork has always been military. I think it's one thing that a lot of people overlook. And especially it's a great attribute for DSGs, too, to be able to take to their civilian employers and say, look, like, I have this leadership training, and part of that is teamwork. I can work well in a group.
And lead it if need be.
Yeah, and step up again in those crisis situations.
So you keep pinging leadership books. What's your favorite leadership book you've read?
My favorite leadership book. I'm actually gonna set John up again for another softball because
here we go. Don't drop it.
It ties into this topic, and so John, if you had to pick a leadership book that you've read recently on teamwork.
Well, I always point to Patrick Lencioni, any of his books, like The Advantage.
You hit it out of the park, John. That's what I was hoping you'd say.
Outstanding.
That's a good one, but that's my favorite author when it comes to leadership. Now he focuses on teamwork, but Patrick Lencioni is my favorite author when it comes to leadership.
And I'll agree with John on that. John actually is the one that turned me on to his books. I'd read a lot of John Maxwell, kind of is the standard one, especially in the Air Force. Gets pushed quite a bit. So anyways, but I think that, yeah, he's got some good books. And with that, I know one of the topics that we always go over in our leadership development courses that we've put on is teamwork. And so with that, I guess, John, do you want to expand a little bit on that, maybe some of the high points?
Yeah. You know, just going back to the conversation that we were just having, and you were saying that, you know, in the military, we're naturally part of a team, but even in that, the leader plays a key role, because you have leaders that, let's say, want to consolidate power. They want to be the ones that kind of lord over everything that's going on, and that's the opposite of teamwork. And then you have leaders that facilitate teamwork. And we've all, I would imagine, been part of organizations or times within our career that we've seen both of those. Mm-hmm. And so leaders can either inhibit or prohibit teamwork. And the importance of teamwork then becomes those within the team, if they're really part of a team and they're valued as team members, then everything that the products of everything that occurs from that team, everybody has
ownership
mm-hmm. of it.
Yeah.
And they can look at it and they can say, yeah, I did that part of that. And I did that part of that. And that's where you get this unit, this camaraderie, and then morale goes up. So the compounding effects of an effective team process in place just make an organization fantastic. Everything goes up. Productivity goes up. Morale goes up. Everything goes up.
And I would say, I feel like just listening to you speak about it, in my own opinion, I feel like that has to start with how they're valued. If they feel mm-hmm. valued and coming from the top down, like you said, we've all been part of a team, an organization, a job where you identify bad leadership pretty quickly, mm-hmm. But when you see
and everybody knows it.
Yeah. And
right.
when you see it and you feel it, the value, because the best leaders are always, putting their team before them, building them up. And, that's leadership from top down value. So inherently teamwork, starts with value.
And like I said, if you have teams, and you said it earlier, like we're part of a team, it's a two-man team, right? Every organization is a team, and then you can have many, many teams within that. And I'll just give you an example. If you as an organization or a unit or squadron or whatever it may be, sit down and you look at perception surveys and the goals that you have in place, and then really drill down to see if you're meeting those goals, then you can create improvement plans. And typically, if you're going to identify improvement plans, there's going to be all kinds of plans out there, right? Well, if you do that, now you've facilitated the creation of different teams, and if you're really good as a leader, you're gonna facilitate the ones that fit in those different plans, that are going to be able to work on those goals to make them better. Now you've created many different teams, right? You're an overall team. Now you've created many different teams, and within those teams, you're given leadership opportunities. The best way for any organization to get better and grow is to create more leaders, because it just has an incredible effect on the organization and be able to move upward. Mm-hmm. If you have one leader, that's really, really good, they can go somewhere. But if you have many leaders within that organization, it's really going to go quickly.
And to piggyback a little bit on what you said earlier, John, you mentioned about kind of process improvement and, looking at the team, how does it do, and then improving on it, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times, I think Sergeant Porter, you'd mentioned, what was your favorite book to read mm-hmm. on leadership? And a lot of those books, the way they're structured, is it's a very formal team process, right? There's mm-hmm. storming, norming, mm-hmm. All these different steps, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes taking that out of the equation and not necessarily putting a label on what you're doing in the team process, right, is a little bit better approach in my view, right? Because otherwise you get into this strict structure mm-hmm. of this mm-hmm. is what a team has to be, and we can only be organized to perform X task,
or
and
tunnel vision,
right,
when it comes to developing your leaders or something.
Absolutely, and then that kind of ties into what John was talking about now, is that when you have more than one leader, right, it's thinking outside the box. It's kind of mm-hmm. one of the the phrases to think about things, and that's where I think you really see the dividend, the payoff with teamwork, right, is when
Mm-hmm.
now you have these people that have been developed, you have these leaders, and you can go through this process, and it's not mechanical. It happens naturally.
I love what you said there, and I always think back to like sports. There's so many analogies within sports, and I used to be a basketball coach, and we would teach as coaches. We would teach them plays, and if you're not careful, what you create are robots that aren't able to react to individual natural situations. And so as in that respect, and like basketball, if you tell a player, hey, you down screen and then you pop out, but if the person that pops out, if there's a defender there, then you don't need to go there.
Right.
You have to react to that situation. And that's what I mean by robot. If it's a player that's not thinking about the situation, that player is going to go to that spot because that's where they were supposed to be.
You're creating leaders within that because you're enabling them to be like, okay, you can. I know it's supposed to be A and then B, but
Yeah. So I think like with teamwork or with a sports team, you give the team players underguiding kind of virtues or values that they go by, and then they can react rather than follow a template that you must follow.
regimented.
Bam.
Yeah.
You teach them to the underlying values or virtues, and then to react according to the situation. And I'll talk about a couple of those. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll talk about a couple of those.
And we just ran out of time. Thanks for coming in. I'm just kidding.
Funny.
Well, and
Funny.
I actually want to. It made me when you were talking about people, creating robots and
Yeah.
that, then it gets into the individual emphasis that you need to put on people, right? Recognizing who they are, what they're good at, and it reminded me of another book that I read, and the author escapes me right now, but the name of the book is called Loon Shots. And if you've watched recently, I think there was a movie on either Amazon or Apple that's called Air. It's a story about how they created the Air
Nike.
Jordans.
Yeah,
the Nike.
absolutely.
And so that is kind of the similar type of thing, right? You have, spoiler alert, right? People that are creative in a different way, and it needs to be recognized, and you need to be able to, seize those people's talents.
Enable them.
Yes, and use them in a different way, right? Like, not everybody is good at drawing, right? For example, right? Like, I'm terrible. I can do stick figures. That's about it. My 3-year-old is better already,
Nice.
than I am. But that's the point about, having things being mechanical and creating these robots, right, is also recognizing that if someone's good at something, right, then you need to give them those opportunities, put them in those positions, and give them enough freedom to do the work that they need to do.
Oh, JT?
Yes, exactly. And if it's something that's, maybe a little bit out there, like give them a little bit of slack, right? Like, let them take a chance. I know one of the big things I've heard out here a lot is, failing forward.
Yeah.
Right. So it's important, right? And if you're not going to take a risk, then you're going to miss out on something.
Yeah, and that leads into innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't do that, then you're going to inhibit innovation. You're not going to move forward. Yeah. Love it.
I think we have an innovation lab here, something like that. Haven't you heard something like that?
Yeah, we do have an innovation lab down on LRS or in the where is it? The vehicle ops.
Somewhere around there. But yeah, that just goes to, speak to leadership now and of past, that's enabling. That's enabling your people, your team, to make the dream work.
John, did you have a few more things you said you wanted to?
Well, I just as far as teamwork is concerned, You know, like I said, I follow Lencioni, and when you go through his books, he lays out some of those fundamental virtues or strategies that teams should be engaged in, and so the first one that he refers to, and if you think of it as a pyramid, it would be the base of the pyramid, and if this is lacking, it's very hard to have an operational effective team, and that is trust. There must be trust within a team. And then we're not here to talk about, you know, you could talk for hours just on each one of the principles, but, you know, how do you develop trust? And I think that goes into a lot of different things. You can talk about relationships and making sure that people are developing relationships. But I go back to what you train on a lot, which is emotional intelligence. Right. And a lot of the ability to build trust is to be able to be emotionally intelligent and know how to react in certain situations. And it's very difficult. It really is, because we all have bad days. Mm-hmm. And if we act out on those bad days, it's very easy to disrupt the trust that you've developed with your teammates over a long period of time. You could mess up and disrupt that trust. The thing is we all mess up. And so the important thing is to remain consistent on the other times to develop that trust. And then once you do develop that trust, when you mess up, then it's a lot easier for the others to overlook that or forgive you for that. And that's another thing, is you got to admit when you mess up.
Yes.
Oh, huge.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Huge.
Thanks for forgiving me, Porter, for every time I mess up.
I'm just a little bit more empathetic than you are. That's all.
As a parent, one of the most important things I've learned, because I mess up as a parent,
Right.
Is to go to my kids and say, "Hey, I really messed up there.
Yeah.
I need you to forgive me for that."
That could mean the world to them.
Yeah.
I noticed a huge difference in when I, growing up, I had my kids kind of young, so when I was in my 20s, I didn't really have the wherewithal to see that what I'm doing to my kids if I'm upset with them or whatever, but as I grew and, my emotional intelligence also grew, so I didn't let the little things get to me, so I realized taking time out and actually having a conversation with my kids, and even if I'm the parent, it's okay to apologize to my kids for, even if they did something they weren't supposed to do, my reaction is not appropriate or something, so
even when you're right, you can still be wrong.
Right, exactly. So it means, I can see how it means the world to them when I acknowledge that I did something I wasn't supposed to do. And, that develops, for me and my kids, we have a very open relationship and we talk to each other about everything, because from the get-go, I realized that that's actually easier to build trust and have your kids, my kids always tell me what they're doing. Even if they do something that they're not supposed to do, they tell me about it because they know how I'm going to react now, and it makes everything easier.
And the fact that they'll come to you and confide in you, it goes back to that
Trust.
base, which is trust.
Right.
And when that, we talked about families being a team, and it's very similar. These principles apply there. If you break that trust, and this is, I don't want to get into parenting, but when you break that trust,
It's
a lot
so
of times,
similar, though.
it
The
is
veins
similar.
are just so similar.
That's where you might see acting out of children, because that trust has been broken. And so that trust that has been broken must get mended somehow. And a lot of times it's the leader that has to provide the impetus to get that mended. And if the leader doesn't do that in the family situation, that's the parent. The parent has to approach and say, "Hey, let's work this out. I'm sorry for messing up there. Let's move forward."
And to Jessica's point too, I mean, it's making it personal, right? Like, so when we're out here, we're not just robots, right? Like, I know what your first name is. I know that you have a family. You know, I know about your kids. I know what's going on in their lives. I know what's going on in your lives, right? Like that, again, is going to build a trust, which ultimately builds the team, which we then use to accomplish the mission. So it's right. You know, it's get to know your people.
Yeah.
You know, have the tough conversations.
Communicate,
too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say too that one of the things that you can do to build trust and build like a more cohesive team is to just come in the morning and have a nice conversation. Like we have another person in here, Airman Crawford. She's one of our PAs. She loves plants. So I actually know a lot about her because we just sit there and talk, you know, it's just, and I would trust her and I'd hope she would trust me, but it's just nice to know your people and know how you can relate to them. That way you can build that rapport, and rapport builds trust and builds good relationships and all that stuff. Full circle.
So after trust, John, what's next in our pyramid?
The next principle that builds on that would be conflict. And most of the time when that word is used, people think I'm getting a fight, you know, fist fight or something like that. And that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, the negative aspect of conflict, which there can be a negative aspect of conflict. But if we let it go to that negative aspect of conflict, then now that trust is eroding, right? When I'm talking about conflict, there needs to be healthy conflict in any team. If there's not healthy conflict, there's a false sense of harmony. And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And a false sense of harmony does no one no good.
Yeah.
There should be positive, good conflict, because that means that, speaking of diversity, people with different views of the issue or the problem are coming forward and saying, this is what I think about this, and this is what I think the solution is. Well, that probably will conflict with somebody else's ideas of what's the best solution to that problem. That's a healthy thing to work those out, because the true best scenario or the best solution is probably a mixture of both. So you have to, within a team, work those things out, and that can cause a little bit of conflict. And it should cause a little bit of conflict because there's diverse views, ideas, priorities within the team.
But because they feel that, I was going to say, but because they feel the trust, they can bring that up. They can have that.
That's
healthy
right,
conflict
exactly.
within
That's
that
why trust is
organization.
the base.
Yeah.
Correct. And what I was going to say is just that then you're making sure you're getting the best product, right? You're going down all the avenues, you're thinking everything through,
right?
And you know, then whatever the end, goal, whatever you're building towards, whatever you're trying to accomplish, then you've really run down,
looked at all the angles,
avenue.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead. No.
So sometimes it's a personality thing. I am naturally inclined not to want to have conflict.
Same.
That's a natural part of who I am.
And you got those pot stirs out there,
Yeah, that'd be the negative aspect. But how many times have we been in a meeting and you're sitting there thinking about it, and you go, now some of you may be more outgoing, but you may hear that, and in your mind you're going, that is not the right way to go. But you don't say anything because I don't want to stir the pot. Yeah. I don't want to go down this road. Well, true leaders, true team players, you need to bring that up, because that could have been a blind spot.
It's a missed opportunity
in somebody else, and in your mind, for some reason, that's going down the wrong road is going to lead to problems. You need to voice that, because that could be something that the other team members, they just aren't seeing.
So that could be a failure on both sides of the teamwork, as far as the leadership not fostering that type of environment within the team, and then you not being a team member and feeling like you can voice it.
And the appropriate response to the team, if it is brought up, is, and that's a really good thought. I didn't think about that. And that validates the person that's bringing up the bad point, and then it opens it up for others.
And just to be clear, too, conflict isn't necessarily adversarial.
No.
It's what we're saying here, just so everyone's clear. It's not doesn't have to be this knockout drag out type of thing.
No,
right?
so what Lencioni would say is conflict is on a continuum. You have very improper conflict, right? That would be like physical. It's gotten physical,
Right.
And then you have the absence of conflict, right? So you have the two ends there, and then you have everything in between, right? What Lencioni would say was the appropriate amount of conflict would be somewhere right of center, where that would be considered healthy conflict.
Okay. Yeah, in my former life, active duty, I was AFN, so we were always making, I don't know, been deployed, so it's radio and television overseas, making products. That was basically all we ever did. It was news stories, it was radio stories, it was commercials, et cetera, et cetera. And, in that team, you got to have creativity, and that's got to be nurtured and, enabled. But yeah, like I remember multiple times, multiple assignments, just having it wasn't like a, go screw yourself. It was just like, no. This is the way we should go. Like, no, this is how I see it. And, and that's, while I would say that's normal with creative types, but still enabling that. And, mostly all of us felt like we had a voice and we could say those things. And, sometimes it got tense. We kind of probably crossed the center over to the left a little bit.
It happens.
I've spoken outside of my lane, outside of my rank before, but I backpedal and be like, but
and I think
this is how I feel still.
I think that's okay. I mean, even like with accountability, if you're trying to hold somebody accountable, we all need positive pressure to do the right thing and do what we're supposed to be doing. And that is seen everywhere. Like, in my civilian job, I have a board. They're holding me accountable, and there's positive pressure on me to do what I need to do to get the organization where it needs to be. Well, that's healthy, right? And as supervisors, you're riding this line of not too much pressure to too much pressure. And you've got to monitor that. And if you step over that line, well, you got to get back over that line, because that can lead to problems within morale and all kinds of things. But this is, with the conflict, it's the same thing. I think you do need to have that. And sometimes just because of our human nature, and maybe we're having a bad day, we're going to step over that line.
Yeah.
But we got to be self-perceptive enough to go, ooh,
that goes into emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Right? And that goes into self-awareness. It goes into what Jessica talked about earlier about having those conversations and knowing other people, right, personally, so that when you're having these conversations, you're not going to go all the way to that physical side, right, for someone that that you really get along with, that you've built a relationship with, right?
Yeah.
Like the conflict's not going to go that far. If you're driving down the road and someone cuts you off, right, like, okay, maybe, the conflict, you're going to get a little
Game on.
Yeah, get a
I
little
don't
bit
know
closer.
you.
Right, exactly. But, if it's someone you're like, oh, John, okay.
John. We've all been there, right, Jess? Yeah. That's my first name, by the way. I do want to ask, though, how many of these we were going on for teamwork, trust, and conflict. How many more do we have?
There's about 3 more.
Okay, so I'm going to say we can actually do this in another part of this, because
Sure.
I don't want to overwhelm the audience, and this is a lot of great information. Don't get me wrong, but yes, I would love to put a pin in it right here, and definitely bring you back, Chief Kraska, Senior Ashworth, because good stuff, right, Jess?
Yeah.
She's quiet over there, so that's why I keep
because I'm
looking at her.
listening. I'm like really intent listening. One of the things I do want to say before we all leave is that I'm impressed how Senior Ashworth, what you're saying that you do and teach in your civilian capacity is nearly identical to what we learn in ALS, NCOA, Senior NCOA, like coming to a middle conclusion. One of the things that I, for some reason, remember and I think about for some reason quite often is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, a phrase I learned when I did Senior NCO, and it's true. Like, that's like everything you learn in those leadership courses is really relevant, especially to what we're talking about now, like leadership, including people and building up your team. So I just want to say that, maybe, if you're about to go to ALS, NCOA, senior NCOA, make sure it might not seem important to you now or it might seem boring or something like that, but it's going to help you as a leader and help your team confide in you and trust in you and help build that rapport with each other.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and if you're just taking those courses for the next rank, then you're missing what you're there for.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think everybody's been in a training seminar or a course, a class, whatever, and you're just like, I'm not really stoked to be here, but then you end up getting something out of it. Yeah, those surprising moments, that's always good. But having said all that, Jess, do you want to get the last word?
No.
I was going to be a little mean and be like, well, you always like to get the last word, so you could wrap up this little podcast. Now, anyways, thank you so much, Chief. Thank you, Senior, for coming in.
Absolutely.
Spilling those wise words, and we will have a part 2, maybe a part 3. So I look forward to it, gentlemen and Jess.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.